We are sorry that we are late up and going this morning, but we had some technical difficulties. And it's our homegirl Jess's birthday today. And yeah, wish her
She's
a
very
happy-
excited about it.
wish her.
We're live. We're good. We got it this time.
We did it.
So if you missed it, it's Jess's birthday. If anyone's watching, go in the chatty chat and say happy birthday to Jessica. All right, so today we're talking about toxic comparison, which I feel like is quite an emotional subject. So I posted something the other day in our homegirls group, and I'm going to read it because this is what made us think about talking about this today. So yeah, happy birthday, Jess. It was
Hi,
just
Lisa.
we
We just listed her house a couple weeks ago.
Nice. Okay, so what the post said was, and again, we're talking about toxic comparison. So I'm closing 11 deals in August, but I have 0 under contract for September. That social media post that you saw last week, 1.4 million under contract in escrow, it fell out this week, but I didn't post that. Oh, they've closed 4 times your volume year to date, but you don't know that they're spending $40,000 a month on Zillow leads. One thing I've learned from this profession is don't get caught up in all the mess that folks post who are trying to boost their ego. So many agents are hardly profitable and flaunt their numbers. The reality is this profession is a grind, and so many fail because they don't have what it takes. Put your nose down and get to work. Focus on you and your goals. All the noise around won't matter if you put in the work. So I definitely do the comparison thing, and I definitely let it get toxic sometimes. What about you guys?
I mean, I do. I think that the competition is healthy. It helps drive me. But there are sometimes like, if I know that the numbers are inflated, it's a little bit easier for me to not take it personally if I'm not doing as well as that person. But sometimes it's hard to know, I appreciate when people are doing really well because it helps drive me to do more. But there's always that part of me that's like, I don't think I could physically work any harder right now. How the hell is that person beating me? And so, yeah, it's a competition on some level, and even I have competition between you guys, when I see you posting stuff on social media and knowing that those are legitimate listings, and buyers that you guys are getting under contract, it helps drive me to say, okay, I need to get my shit together and get back on the horse. Like I took all of basically July off and I knew that my numbers were going to be low. So I needed to get back at it, to get back on track with my goals. So what about you, Jess?
Yes and no. I think it changes through the years. Like I'm not jealous necessarily of production at this point. I'm jealous of people who have figured out like how to leverage really well, and they seem like they're living a much bigger, happier life. And I get it. Like Facebook, like my oldest son always says, your social media makes you compare your insides to everybody else's outsides. And I get it. Like nothing's perfect, and it's very rare that we post our losses. But those are the things that get into my head lately. Like, what are the components in my life and in my business that I need to put into place so that I can seemingly live a life? And I'm going to use Sheena Sadam as the example today, where I can live a life like Sheena. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys who listen to us follow Sheena on social media. She runs a monster team. She has 3 young children. She has an amazing marriage. She just bought a spa because she wanted to go buy a spa. It was a new business venture for her that wasn't necessarily real estate related. That's where I'm at the point in my career and in my life that I feel myself comparing, and I feel like a failure when I see other people living these really big lives like that I really want to do.
So it's interesting to me that we chose this topic today because in a roundabout-ish way, I feel like this is part of the reason that this show started, because part of our job as business owners who need to get clients is to go out there and give the best version of ourselves. And it's to go out there and talk ourselves up, right? But, you know, part of the reason that we wanted to start this show in the beginning was to say, like, hey, we are sick of the stage talk. We're sick of the happy, super amazing, everything is great, and real estate is roses and butterflies all the time crap. Like, we were like, hey, there's really no one out there talking in this industry. And I'm going to be honest, like, I don't feel like in business in general about how hard it is, right? Like all these TV shows with real estate, they're making millions of dollars a year and it's so easy and everyone is happy. And that is not the way that it is. Like, this job is hard. It's emotionally hard. You know, you have to motivate yourself all on your own. And then, you know, you go online and you see all these other people posting the best version of themselves because that's who, you know, they need to be in order to get more business, but it can be damaging for sure. So Valerie says, truth, competition. It's a competition. Some don't know they're in with me. Although when my sales are down, it helps me to stay up and fighting. So I think there's all like some level of that for all of us. Like, I have an agent friend who has her, you know, competition, like her person that she wants to beat up on the wall in her office, and she throws darts at it during the day when she gets upset. And even funnier than that, for Christmas last year, her family put that person's picture on a shirt and made her wear it at the family Christmas party. Like, basically to say, like, hey, she's kicking your ass, you need to step it up. So, like, yes, competition can be good, but I think we want to talk about, when does it cross the line into toxic or harmful?
So when I was growing up, I played very, very, very competitive sports. I played very competitive softball. And my best was sometimes never enough for some of the people around me, sometimes my coaches. And I knew that I was practicing, you know, like I should, probably more than I should, and giving everything I possibly could, but sometimes it wasn't enough. And so that mentality my entire life kind of messed me up pretty good, right? So now when I'm giving my best, and I know that I'm giving my best, I always feel like there's something else I should be doing. And I feel like that's where the toxicity for me comes in. The constant comparison my entire life to somebody else that might be doing it better than you. When that no longer drives me anymore, I'm not that person that gives a shit about trophies or winning competitions, any of that. That does not drive me at all anymore. And I think that that's because it was beaten into me so badly when I was a kid. So my therapist probably could tell you more about that.
Thanks for sharing that. That's very authentic of you. Yeah, no, like, I do this to myself bad. Like, I feel like this has been a weird blessing, like you said, because it does motivate me, and also a massive curse in my life. Like, there was a point in my life a few years ago where my business had exploded. I was doing, you know, I was top of everything in Denver. I was the #1 listing agent. I was the #3 real estate in the state of Colorado. I was, you know, doing all the things. Like, I made the top 100, all these things that I wanted. And I went to the top 100, which was this enormous thing that I'd worked for 10 years for. And I went one time, and you're supposed to go 4 times a year. And I only went once because, like, I walked into the room and I was the smallest fish in the room, and everyone else in there was doing light years, leaps and bounds. I mean, 100 times what I was doing. And I was so angry with myself, and I was beating myself up so bad. Like, I was like, wow, you're a real piece of shit. Like, who even let you in here, you know? And it upset me so much. I was like, I can't go back. Like, so I let toxicness get me bad, for sure. Like, I compare a lot with other people.
I feel like the success of other people and those crazy big numbers, I always think about what they are sacrificing to get that, and what we don't see, how their life is, what they don't show, basically what you've given up to just be successful. I don't think it'll ever be enough to make up for what you're losing. If all you have is money, you have nothing.
I'm like a giant cautionary tale, right? I haven't told like my full story, but I mean, I pretty much destroyed my life. Definitely had a hand in destroying my marriage over being uber successful. So for me, it definitely wasn't good. But now sometimes I feel like the toxicity is even worse because like I've been there and I've done it. And now I'm like, well, what the hell are you doing? Like, you know that you're capable of more. Why don't you do more? It's this whole like hustle culture, right? Like for years, the Gary V's and the Grant Cardones and the Tony Robbins were like, what does your shirt say, right? Work harder, no one cares, right? Like hustle, 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 hustle. Which is funny because now even those guys are ramping that back down because like I think they even realize that it's toxic, and now like Nick and Tristan and Lab Coat's agents say, leverage is the new hustle. And Gary Vee says, like you only hustle to make a life, right? But I mean, this shit can be damaging. Like, I feel like it can be very damaging. And I feel like for newer people in the industry, like it might be really hard to have constant feedback from all these people in your ears all the time that are like, well, I did this and I won this and I did this and I did this, it's like sad, I think. And you're 100% right. Like most of those people at the top, I think for a few that have learned how to leverage really well and have their businesses set up correctly, they have good lives. But I mean, like one of my very favorite women that I follow, like her husband lives in she's in Alaska and he's in Florida. Like they don't even live in the same places because they're both running massive businesses and they're married and they don't see each other that often. Like the amount of sacrifice that people give up to have success is kind of astounding.
I think that's the thing that people don't see or talk about. That when newer people come into our industry and they say, I want what you have, I want your life, you don't realize what that comes with and what that really means. It's not fun. So today I got to go with my kids and my husband to my kids' first day of school, which I don't think I've been able to do or have done in a long time. So being able to do that today was really important to me. And I wasn't going to miss it. So,
I mean, I like one of the wake up calls for me was like, so my son is 11. I missed 7 Easters, 7, because I was out showing while my son was at the Easter egg hunt or meeting with the Easter bunny, like that's the stuff that people aren't sharing. And then we're modeling our entire lives after people who look amazing on Facebook, but whose balance is completely out of whack in real life.
Right.
That's crazy.
Like whoever said that like 50 or 60 deals a year isn't enough. Like, I don't understand. Like I think it's healthy to want to do more if that's what you personally want to do. But if we tell ourselves like we did 50 transactions last year, I want to do 75 this year. Well, what are you going to sacrifice to get to 75? How much more are you willing to give of both your time, yourself, and your family's time? If you have a family, like what else are you going to miss? Like I honestly have no fucking clue how Jessica gets to all of her kids' practices. Because her kid like does like 19 sports at once or some shit like that. Like she's either at a baseball field, a football field, something all the time. And she's working from there. And I don't know how she balances it, but she does a hell of a lot better than I do.
So I think I'm like very emotional today. I'm always like this on my birthday, but I shared with Lindsay and Angela earlier that my broker, Gabe, who passed away in February, used to call me every year on my birthday and sing to me. And so what I'm about to say is actually related to Gabe. So last year, the middle of 2020, I was at this weird place where, and I think to be candid with everybody, doing the podcast made me feel less than. I was around you guys. I was around all these really big producers, and all I was hearing was more. And so I very much got into this place the middle of last year where more. And I was on the phone with Gabe one day, and we were having this conversation, and Gabe said to me, Jessica, what is the difference between 400,000 and 500,000? What is the difference between 500,000 and 600,000? When is it ever enough for you? And I was so fucking mad at him, because I was like, why are you okay with like being mediocre? And why is it okay for you to tell me to be less than or to not want more? And we got into this, like, it was like a brother and sister fight. And when he passed away in February, it like all made sense. Like what he had been trying to say to me. One of the biggest things Gabe always said was, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? And it was something that, like, whenever he would ask me, it was very weird to me. I'm like, I'm 38, I'm 37, I'm 32. Why are you asking me this? And hindsight's 2020. And Gabe always used to say, like, your legacy isn't how many houses you've sold. Your legacy is how many people you've helped. Your legacy is how many people, how your kids grew up, and like, I always knew that. And I've always modeled my business that way. I was in such a hard place last year. I couldn't hear it because I felt so small compared to everybody that I was spending so much time with. And then when he passed away, it was like this huge, like, aha moment that I had. And I was like, this is what he's been trying to say to me all these years. And while I've heard him to an extent, I didn't fully hear him until later. And so I think I've been very fortunate in my career to have always been surrounded by people who have, Shannon Steer, Gabe, plenty of other people who have been in my world who have always said to me, like, you have to have balance. Your family comes first. You can't get this time back with your kids. And then you couple that with the fact that I, had a kid at 18 and I missed out on so much, and I didn't want to do that again with Hayden, and I haven't. And so that's something that I've always, to me, has been the most important part of my business, is that my family has always come along with me, and my family will never be sacrificed for a deal.
Your boundaries are incredible. Like, I will say that, probably the best that I've ever seen in, the whole business for someone to have.
But interestingly enough, last year when I started to let those boundaries go, because I started to feel like I had to in order to keep pace with you guys, that's when my business actually was fumbling, because I was allowing things in my life that I wouldn't normally have allowed. And then once I came back this year and said, like, no, I'm going back to the way that I've always done things because it's worked really well for me, that's when my business started to get back on track. So I think for me too, like, we get down to comparison, and I can sit here and compare my life to you guys all day long, or anyone else that we've interviewed. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's the best thing for you. Could I run my business differently? Probably. Could I leverage more? Absolutely. Are there things and holes that I need to fix? For sure. But at the end of the day, the basic principles of my business have to stay that foundation, or the business is never going to grow. And I can't compare myself to anyone else, because what's important to me is maybe not important to you, or to the hundreds of people we've interviewed.
Well, and this is real shit. Like, again, that was the point of the show, right? Like, we want to talk about the real stuff that nobody is talking about. Like, the three of us in our worlds, we're the breadwinners and we're the providers. And this is where this gets really, really difficult on so many levels, right? Like, first of all, you wake up every day in this business unemployed, and every day there's fear, and there will never not be fear. I don't care if you're a brand new agent or you have 30,000 people on your team. There will always be fear, right? When you wake up every day unemployed, and your job and your money and your family's safety is like so affected by coronavirus or the friggin' election or all these different things, right? But, so like, we're providers and we're breadwinners, and we constantly are feeling like we're stuck between choosing, like, putting food on the table and keeping our family in the type of lifestyle that they're accustomed to, or, having freedom and living like a robust life and being able to have boundaries. So that's where it gets really hard for people, right? Is it's like, do we eat? Do my people still get to do all the sports and drive the cars and go on the vacations and do the things? Or do I have a boundary and say no to this client or no to this situation that I know in my heart I need to say no to? But if I say no to it, then all this goes away. Like it's very intense. I feel like
it's a balance.
So let's
but I
talk
don't
about
believe in balance. Like I don't believe that there is such a thing as work-life balance. And I think like the sooner people acknowledge that and get comfortable with that, the better off you're going to be. Like you just time block and you have to manage your life, or else there's not even like a semblance of balance, right? From the outside looking in, like there's just nothing. And so it comes back to time management. And that's what I've always been taught. Like there's no such thing as work-life balance, and you just have to manage your calendar.
Well, it's also like Gary Keller talks about counterbalancing, right? Like there is no such thing as balance. Like that is a joke. Anyone who preaches balance has never been in this industry, right? Like, or has never had to wake up every day unemployed and fight for their life every single day. Because whether you're at the top or you're just starting, that's a real thing. But you know, Gary Keller talks about counterbalancing, right? Which just means learning how to prioritize what you need to prioritize when it's time to prioritize that thing. So it just basically means like, you know, if this is main line and balance, and then today the kids have back to school becomes more important than this, right? And then maybe tomorrow you have a really big listing presentation and that becomes more important than this, right? So it's just counterbalancing, right? But no, balance is a joke for sure. So Brianne says, the reason why I follow you guys on this podcast is that you're real. I look up to each one of you and it's hard not to compare in life, but I'm learning to do what works for me. Yeah. I mean, I think that, thanks, Brianne, by the way, we love you. I feel like one of the, you know, we do it too, is what I'm trying to say. Like, it doesn't matter. And I feel like everyone does it. Like even people that run big, giant organizations and businesses are still comparing themselves to someone else. Sarah says, this idea that I had to sacrifice my kids' family time and marriage terrified me as a new agent. I think I've done an okay job so far, but it's tough switching hats so often. It's definitely a juggling act. Yeah. And listen, like our show is funny because I don't really feel like politically or value-wise, any of the three of us are like these mega feminists that are like, yeah, women are the best, right? But at the same time, I will say that I definitely think that this is harder on women because men have wives, right? So like if life is buckets and there's this bucket that is home, and home is, you know, someone has to make food and someone has to clean the house and someone has to do the laundry and someone has to drive the kids to school and drive the kids to practice, put the kids to bed, read them the books, all these things, that bucket, right? And then there's the work bucket that's like, I make the money that allows the home bucket to happen. Women have to play in both buckets at the same time versus most men in this industry are only in the work bucket, right? And we also catch a lot of shit for being too much in the work bucket and not enough in the home bucket, right? So I do think this is really, it's harder for women too.
Or too much in the masculine bucket and not enough in the femininity bucket, which is what comes along with being a strong woman and a strong personality. So
as I cry today on our podcast.
We cry a lot here. It's a safe space.
Well, I was Bob Tompkins, who I think might actually be on right now. He was in town a couple weeks ago. Him and I were in the car together driving to the lake to meet you guys. And him and I were having this specific conversation about like, why does it feel like men are so much quicker to leverage than women are? And I made the comment to him that like their whole life is leveraged just from like a young age, right? Like you have a mom who runs your life and then you get a wife who runs your life. We don't, and again, I hate to sound like some like raging feminist right now, but like the reality of it is we as women are kind of martyrs in the respect that we take everything in and we do everything and it's our life and our way and our organization. And when I said that, Bob was like, I like never thought about it like that. Like, men are basically like born with an assistant, and women, for all intent, are the assistant. And I don't think that's exactly how he put it, but something to that effect of, I never thought that may be why it's harder for women to leverage. And so it was just an interesting conversation because, Bob is so leveraged in his business in such a short period of time. And for me, as someone who's been in real estate for a long period of time and who admittedly isn't leveraged at all, it is wild to me that like you've been in the business for 3 years and you've already got 1,000 assistants or a VA and a production person and this person. And that's crazy to me. And why is that? I do think a little bit of it's the martyr thing. And then I also think that we as women are just used to it.
Well, and we carry like guilt. Like, I don't think that guilt is like wherever the guilt bone is in the body, it doesn't exist in a man's body, which is like really irritating for me because, we want to dabble in both buckets, right? Like, we're supposed to be in charge of the home bucket. That's who we are. We're women. The home is our domain, but then we're like in the work bucket. And so then when it comes to like, well, let's hire a cleaner. Oh no, I'm supposed to take care of that. Or let's hire a nanny. Oh, no. I'm supposed to, let's hire someone to make healthy food for our family. Oh, no. I would rather feed my kid mac and cheese out of the blue box or fucking microwaved ramen noodles for the rest of eternity than hire someone to come in and make healthy food for my child because I'm supposed to be in the home bucket, right? It's very hard, and we don't want to bring in leverage in our personal lives because it feels unwomanly.
I kind of feel a little bit differently, I think. I think that guys still have that guilt. I think they just hide it better than we do. I think that the reason why they leverage first is because they're less emotional. I'm more emotional and I overthink that kind of thing. Whereas, my husband would probably say, yeah, let's just hire them. I mean, we work hard, let's just get it done. Whereas I would overthink it. So I think that part of we do it to ourselves, in my opinion, a lot of it.
So where I actually compare myself more than anything is to like the stay-at-home moms. Like they show up, right? Like I've been working all day. I'm like this hot, sweaty, gross mess. They come in like refreshed and beautiful and hair is perfectly done and their makeup's gorgeous and their house is spotless and their cars are clean. And here I am, right? Like smelling like a dumpster. I've got shit kickers on because I've been showing property out in the hills, right? Like that's who I find myself comparing and like we're sitting like at drinks and they're talking about whatever. And I'm like, I have nothing to add to this conversation, like at all, because I don't fit in here. So I actually find myself comparing more in that space than I maybe do a business space, because those are the women that make me feel less than. That's where I'm comparing myself to.
That's interesting. I do that. I mean, I do that too. Yeah. I mean, my friend, she would know exactly who I'm talking about if she was watching this right now. And I love her so much, but like, the Christmas elves, she's like fucking knitting her elves clothes and like her elf every morning. And she has 2 of them because she has 2 boys. Her elf is like, I don't know, zooming down the slopes of the Alps in his hand uniform. And like, I mean, it is like incredible. And the leprechaun visits her house for St. Patrick's Day. And, her, like she makes green waffles and every day there's pancakes and like some magical celebration. I'm like, oh my God. It's like, if my elf moves, he's literally going to move from this table to like this table. And then there's the guilt bone again. Like, I'm like, oh my God, my child's elf didn't make him pancakes this morning. My child's going to fail out of life because I'm a terrible mother. Like,
well, like
so
when did that even start? Like, none of us had a leprechaun visit when we were growing up. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, stop it. Enough.
Yeah, stop leveling up the amount of stuff that we're supposed to do.
Like,
for our children, we're already doing enough.
I don't even feel bad about it. My elf died in a fire and then was eaten by our dog several years ago. And I do not give a shit about it. So my kids don't believe in Santa Claus. They know that it's me and Josh that are Santa Claus, and they don't care. So I'm not going to do that shit to myself. I'd rather spend my time sleeping and then waiting to the last possible minute, not making my kids breakfast and going to McDonald's, because that's my life. That's what I'm used to.
Valerie says, I feel that on so many levels I don't fit in. Girl, that is a rough one. Like I remember going to, like, when I first switched over to Keller Williams, I went to a barbecue for the company, and like I've caught a lot of shit in my life from people very close to me that are like, you're antisocial, you don't go play with your brother. Well, this is probably one of the reasons why. Like, I went to the company barbecue and like I never know where to stand. And that's like in general in life. Do I stand with the men? Because like we can talk about business and things, or do like I stand with the women and we can talk about like oils and Pine Sol? And I'm really not judging, I swear to God. This is just a thing for me. So I went to the company barbecue and I was like, I don't know where to stand. I don't know where my people are. I don't know where I fit in. Right. And so I went over to the men and they were talking about business, and like they literally kind of like moved and like closed me out of the circle. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I don't fit in over here. Not to mention I do like 10 times the production of any of those men in that circle, by the way. So then I went over to the women and they were sitting there talking about stuff. And the one mom asked me what I was making for dinner. And I was like, I don't know. I have to work tonight. And like literally like 10 women's jaws fell on the ground and they were like, you work? And I was like, yes, I sell real estate. And they were like, oh, well, I thought you would just be here with your husband who runs the real estate team. And I was like, no, it's my real estate team. Right. So like, that's why I don't go anywhere. I don't go to those places. Cause like Valerie said, I don't fit in. I don't know what kind of fucking Pine Sol I should be using. Couldn't tell you.
Lindsay and I are the we'll be by and stop by to say hello for 10 minutes, drop off a gift, and get the fuck. Because I don't need to not fit in anywhere. I'll just go hang out with my kids and my husband and hang out at my house. I don't need to feel uncomfortable anywhere. I'm at that stage of my life where I'd rather be at home sitting in sweatpants than out trying to impress somebody that doesn't give two shits about me. So
Bob Tompkins, we love you too. I would like you to know, if you're still watching, Angela, with a very straight face today, actually said to Ed Stalick, what is it like having such a prolific mentor as Bob Tompkins? And I almost died.
And then we all had a good laugh, is how that went.
So I was just going to say, so I had a friend, a male friend of mine, who is a VP of a massive financial institution, give me the book Relentless a month ago by Tim Grover. If you guys haven't read it, like, this is probably one of the first books in a really long time that like I couldn't recommend it enough for every single person. So Tim Grover is a coach for massive, basically basketball players: Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, Charles Barkley, like you name it, this guy is a private coach. So the premise of the book is that there are just some people who are, he calls them a cleaner. Like, you have 3 different levels of different people. And in the book, he talks about how the cleaner, like the Michael Jordans and the Kobe Bryants of the world, they're just the ones who don't give up. They're relentless. Like, if you saw how many times these people failed and the personality types that they are behind closed doors, like, we would all be floored. And I found myself really relating to this book in a way, it felt like it was giving me permission. So they call it your dark side, where you go into this like zone where no one can affect you and nobody can touch you. And like, when you tell this type of personality, they can't do something, they go into this zone and they just go and do what they're supposed to do. So this book, Jake gave it to me like 2-3 weeks ago. I'm reading it for the second time already, and I've been listening to it also. This book feels like it gave me permission, like, to just be who I am. And there's been something, I know it sounds weird, but this is one of the most impactful books I've ever read. Like, it feels like it has given me permission to just go and be whoever the fuck you are. And it doesn't matter. And it's okay to embrace this dark side where you are competitive and you do want to win and you do want to be the best. And so I would say, to like, and it talks about the other personality types, which maybe you're that way too, which is a key component of just the world we exist in. We need all of these different personality types. And so I would encourage anybody, go pick up this book, because it has been a like freeing, eye-opening experience reading this book. Like, maybe don't ever suggest Rachel Hollis to me. Suggest Tim Grover to me.
Maybe we should do a book club. Okay, so Sarah says, what's worked for my husband and I is getting rid of the labels and say, fuck it, let's get a cleaner. Let's ask people to watch our kids. As soon as we were able to make ourselves vulnerable to say, screw what everyone else thinks, things seem to be getting better. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it is harder for us to leverage our personal lives than it is to leverage our business lives because of the guilt that comes along with that, right? We are going to work on, by the way, a plan, like a leverage blueprint, like leverage your life this way and leverage your business this way that we're going to share. But I think it sounds like you have a great support system. That's one of the other things that I find really hard as I see a lot of posts from women in a lot of groups who are, you know, like, hey, I just got into real estate. My so-and-so doesn't support me. They think that it's a joke that I'm going out and showing houses, and they think that it's a joke that I'm doing it, you know, like, I think it sounds like Sarah has an amazing support system, which is huge. And I think you're right. You have to be vulnerable and say, I need help with these things. I can't do these things. Kimberly says, thanks for keeping it real. We don't know how to be any other way. The last thing I wanted to talk about on this subject is profitability, because that was mentioned in that post that I made. The fact that some of these people look like they're doing monster numbers and they're not even that profitable. That's like a real thing, you guys. So, you know, like there are groups that you only get into for doing a certain number of volume and transactions. And it's been that way for decades. And then all of a sudden in the last 2 years, most of those groups have actually started saying, like, we need to see your books and we need to see your GCI, and then we need to see your actual profit, because you did have all these people doing thousands, hundreds, millions of transactions a year, and they're making no money. And again, the whole world of real estate is modeling themselves against these people.
Well, remember last year when I was asked to speak at Next Level Agents, and I was like super insecure about it because I'm like, who am I production wise compared to these other women? And then once like we started to have the conversation, it was, you run a profitable business that like not everybody's at a place where they can do 400 deals a year with a massive team. Like you're at a place where a lot of people would really like to be. And so that started to make me feel more secure in my business too, where it was like a reminder that like, you may not be here, but you are here. And there's a lot of people who would like to be where you are. And so, you know, I think you have to remember that too. Like whether you're closing 12 deals a year, you're closing 20, or you're closing 40, wherever you're at business-wise, somebody else would love to be you and to be in your shoes. And so I think that's another strong reminder that even if you're sitting here comparing yourselves to us, someone's probably comparing themselves to you and looking up to you also, especially in this business, because we always want to be doing what we perceive to be the next person up from us.
And again, that's why I feel like this was part of our mission. Like it's important to us that we talk about the mess, because I would never, like, it's a joke to me, first of all, that anyone would look up to us. I think that's really funny. But if they were to, like, I would never want to be the type of person that was like, oh my God, we're amazing, we're doing all the things. Like, this business has fucked up our lives just like it's fucked up your life, and we're all just trying to figure it out together, right? It's the best business in the world, and it's also really hard. And it doesn't matter what level of the game you're at or how long you've been in the business, but you know, it's hard. It's a hard business. So that was a tough one today, but I'm glad we had that combo.
Yep.
Thanks for hanging with us, guys. We will see you next Tuesday. Every Tuesday, 10 a.m. I almost said 11.
10-ish a.m.
That's how good my balance is.
Emphasis on the ish.
Yes. And happy birthday, Jess. We love you. And happy belated to Angela, too, because she wasn't on her birthday. So
It's okay.
we love those. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.